All right, good evening and welcome to Sports Zone on News Talk New England. I'm Tiffany Williams. Joining me tonight is DJ Harden and Darryl Harden Sr. Both are on location at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. And Darryl and DJ, I gotta say, you guys are doing an absolute amazing job out there covering the press conferences, covering the workouts and stuff. Daryl, we'll start with you. Give me like 5 takeaways right now that you've had from the combine.
Okay, well, one of the things that I really liked about it is its growth, the fact that they had the fan experience. Literally, this used to just be coaches, scouts, and players on the field going through their drills. Whereas now, I mean, there were thousands of fans there where you can run the 40, you can do skills and drills, you can see all 57 championship rings. You can get autographs signed. They had some of the Colts players there. I mean, Rodney Harrison was there. It's just sort of turned into a fun event. So the other thing that was really key, and this is coming from somebody who has a family of 4, is totally free.
Yeah.
So whereas, when you go to the Super Bowl, you might have to spend thousands of dollars on tickets for the game. This is something you could bring a huge family to, and the whole experience is free, except for, any merchandise you buy or anything like that. But that's one of the things that I think is great about it. And it seems like it's just going to continue to grow as years progress. The other thing that is pretty cool is you kind of get to see, the swag of players in the interviews. For instance, I know everybody is, saying Caleb Williams is going to be the first round draft pick. And I think that, he'll be a decent player. But then there's somebody like Penix who, from talking to him, I just feel like he has that thing that's needed in the NFL. It's like the confidence is there. And I honestly, my gut feeling is that he's going to produce more than Caleb Williams in the long run.
And it's funny because you mentioned Caleb Williams. The QB class, it's got some very intriguing prospects with some NFL caliber and potential. But when you look at guys like you just said, you look at Caleb Williams, you look at another guy, you're like, Penix could go number 1.
Well, I think Caleb Williams is going to go before Penix, but just, basically some quarterbacks can't translate to the speed of the game. In college, you got maybe 5 superstars on the other side of the ball, whereas here, everybody, is running 4 or 5 40s and such. So the speed of the game has to pick up. And some quarterbacks just can't really translate to that. Mac Jones being a perfect example.
Just going to say Mac Jones being a perfect example for that.
Yeah, and for some reason, I'm not trying to down his stock, but I just feel like Caleb Williams won't do as well as Penix possibly could.
Yeah. Could you see somebody like Penix or Drake May, DJ, possibly go into the New England Patriots?
I mean, I would most likely hope for Michael Penix because, as Darryl was talking about, I really agree with the competitive nature that Penix has and that chip on his shoulder, which I think is one of those key things to have, and that confidence. But, I mean, the Patriots, it's kind of wide open. It's kind of like, where do you play it at? Because having the number 3 pick, if we go quarterback, there's a world where we trade up 2 spots and get a Caleb Williams, or maybe someone else trades up with Chicago and someone trades with the Commanders and gets Caleb Williams. And then we have all types of options because we talked about a Drake May. But there's even the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels, that's possible.
I was just going to say that too. I mean,
Oregon, we haven't even discussed.
Jaden Daniels is also in the conversation too.
Yeah, I think if anything, with the Patriots being number 3, if we're going quarterback, I think possibly Jaden Daniels, especially with Drake May being so high on most people's boards. Now, yes, today, as we were discussing earlier before the show, Drake May has met with the Patriots, has confirmed that, said he liked talking to Gerard Mayo. It was a great conversation. But, there's a world where Washington takes Drake May at 2. Someone trades up, or Chicago takes Caleb Williams at 1. So I think Jaden Daniels is someone in that conversation that probably should be more talked about, possibly. And then there's still like your Bo Nix from Oregon, your J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. I mean, there's always a world, too, where the Patriots focus on other positions and we go find a free agent and then we go late rounds, similar to like the Tom Brady-esque plan and all the other ones where we pick somebody in the later rounds like a Spencer Rattler from South Carolina who was out the combine today, or even some guy like a small school guy. You never know. But for sure, I see like the top runnings of people's is like a Penix in like a second round. If we do go free agent QB, we want to have a like future plan, or where I think we're going to end up going like a Jaden Daniels or Drake May at 3.
Mm-hmm. Now, Darryl, I got to ask you, J.J. McCarthy is also in the conversation and in the top 5. What did you think about him so far?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm leaning towards Penix more than anybody. I mean, like I said, some of these guys, they come in and their stock is so high that they're not even gonna throw because all it can do is hurt. All it can do is downgrade their stock. So, like for instance, Caleb Williams said, I'm not going to throw. You can just look at game film because he's already so high on the draft. If he starts throwing inaccurate balls, it's just going to make his stock go down.
Yes.
So there is that little play in it a little bit. And I think that JJ sort of falls into that category a little bit. He's so high up there.
I mean, especially if you say like he just won the national championship at Michigan. So
right.
For that alone, his stock is very high. I've seen him pretty much like I think personally he's going to go like in the later part of the first round. But technically, you're right. He could be part of that conversation. I'm assuming he's going to probably fall back to the Chargers and let Jim Harbaugh get his guy back, possibly.
That's true.
But in a world where and especially since the quarterbacks haven't worked out at the time we're recording this, we'll have to see more tomorrow from him. Mm-hmm. But so far with the media, it's just kind of been for most like those top couple of 5 or so guys, they're just kind of just happy to like for a him, a Bo Nix, or Drake May. They're just like, I'm happy to be here. I've met with a lot of people, and they're just trying to keep their stock as high as possible. Because also with the Caleb Williams effect, it's kind of similar to the NBA we saw with Victor Wembanyama, where I joke where it's like the Larry Bird in the 3-point contest in the 80s, where it's like who's coming in second. Like I feel like Caleb Williams is so high above everybody else, where the rest of them guys they're just trying to be that number 2 guy or still just get drafted as high as possible. But like Darryl was saying, he has a very good point, and his stock is already very high, and there's boards I've seen him going in the top 10. So at this point, they're just kind of trying to keep level-headed and try to not do anything to hurt their stock character-wise.
Well, there's some great prospects for quarterbacks. Let's move over to running backs, where this year lacks a lot of star power. You have guys like Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, and Bucky Irvin. What do you guys think about those guys?
Well, I mean, once again, it's like you said, the stock and the star power is kind of lacking a bit. I think that's more in part to just how the game is turning into a passing game overall. I mean, because the same way I've always talked about, me being the King Henry guy, Derrick Henry guy I am, it's hard to watch all these other teams start having receiving backs. One guy I did talk to today that I think fits that mold perfectly is the kid out of Louisville I talked to today, and he has that out. And one of the other, I saw another running back, I can't remember his name at the time, but he was mentioning that he's going to run some receiver routes. Oh, it was the running back from New Hampshire, Dylan. That's who I talked to. He was mentioning that. And so for that, a lot of the star power, it's hard to have star power when your position is changing in a sense by the year, and you're slowly turning into more receivers from the backfield than anything. So it definitely lacks star power. I mean, I say one thing a star power we technically do have is Frank Gore Jr. because I just say personally being on the ground there during interviews, the amount of crowd by him was huge just because of who his father is, of course, and how he's filling those shoes and the footsteps.
Yeah, maybe he can play for 100 years like his dad did because his dad played forever. The other thing, too, that you got to remember is the way the game is now, it's not like people have one running back that they count on. It's almost like running back by committee. So you kind of don't have one premier back anymore. You got several different people that sort of fill the role. Mm-hmm. So right there, you're sort of taking away from the star power a little bit because there are no LaDainian Tomlinsons that just run constantly. You have 2 and 3 different backs that fill that role.
Yep. DJ, you also have to keep an eye on Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, a junior who is going to be in the draft. Where do you think a guy like that ends up going in the draft, if he even gets picked in the draft?
Well, I mean, that's the confusion of what those later round guys have. I mean, because I found that last year when I talked to a bunch of people, and when you get to the later round, it is, with the East-West Bowl. I mean, I talked about this with other media members, where sometimes I find the question of who'd you meet with almost like a throwaway question, because everybody has met with anybody in some sort of capacity, informally or formally, at the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Hula Bowl, all these other bowl games and the combines and the behind the scenes. So it's really hard to determine where guys might go. I mean, you can make your best prediction, of course, and say, oh, he might fit in a system like this, or he could fit somewhere here. But it is really hard to tell. I mean, I just think of teams that could use running backs. So I say for Wisconsin, teams are going to move on from their other running backs, like a Raiders or a Giants or a Titans, where their running backs, their bigger guys, are going to free agency. You could probably say someone like him could be drafted in later rounds as a small replacement to back up or help that, as Darryl put it, the running back by committee. So, I mean, it's hard to make any bold predictions, of course, because of just how, like you said, the position is changing and the game is changing around it, and it's the committees, and everybody meeting with everybody. But I think some of those teams that are losing their star running backs could be in the draft hunting for a running back.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I have to say this.
Yep.
I feel like running backs take the most toll, except for maybe the offensive and defensive lines.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
I was talking to one of the medical staff,
mm-hmm.
and he was saying there are red flags you look for, because you got to think some of these kids have literally been playing for the last 10 years of their lives.
Yep.
So you're already starting to see some of the degradation, say, in the cartilage in their knees. You're already starting to see who has had repetitive concussion protocol. You're already starting to see some of the flaws. And I think that, as far as running backs are concerned, those careers kind of, for the most part, short-lived.
I mean, I would piggyback off that and say that's kind of why we saw Derrick Henry in his Heisman year go down in the draft, because he pretty much had 2,000-yard seasons all through high school and all those carries. I remember people were concerned about the wear and tear. So that's one of those things to look out for running backs as well, as we were saying, the short-lived running backs and the few years that careers you can have, and how injuries kind of I say almost like fairy tales. Some of them, the careers are so short and short-lived and small stories.
Yeah.
I could say one good thing about the Combine.
Yeah.
The Combine benefits the players from smaller schools, like Coker, for instance.
Yes.
From Holy Cross. Now, he went to the Hula Bowl, which is kind of the all-star game for college.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's really looking at him hardcore, even though he's a very talented receiver. So by going to the Combine, people can sort of notice him that haven't noticed him already.
Especially, one of the things about the Hula Bowl, too, is, there's a lot of scouts there. There's a lot of people from the teams that go to that and watch these players. One thing I noticed, when you go to a Holy Cross game, and the difference between a Holy Cross game and a BC game, for instance, you don't see too many scouts like you would at Holy Cross, like you would at BC. For instance, if you go to a BC game, I would always see Detroit Lions scouts over there, those games. So that goes to your point, Darryl. They don't really get looked at as smaller schools, but the Combine gives them that opportunity where they can actually get looked at by these teams.
I mean, I'd piggyback off that and say the perfect example of that also would be Demario Douglas, who the Patriots drafted last year. I mean, he was a small school guy from Liberty. I remember talking to him, and he went to the Combine. He was there, and he had the best broad jump and the vert. And I feel like that's definitely something that probably got his name higher up on that map. And when we spoke to Croker today, he kind of aired that same sentiment of they say I'm a small school guy and all this stuff, but I'm just looking to prove everybody and prove who I am and that I belong.
Definitely agree with that. Hey, from running backs and quarterbacks to one of the most important positions, and the Patriots are probably in the hunt for, are wide receivers. Top of that list, Marvin Harrison Jr. which I took a lot of flack for on social media for not putting him in my top 10. Personal reasons. But you have guys like Rome, I'm probably going to butcher this, Adunzi. You have Malik Neighbors, Keon Coleman. You have Brian Thomas. But we also can't leave out of the conversation a guy like Lad McConkey. And I probably butchered his name because I'm really good at butchering names. DJ, the Patriots have that pick, I believe, at 3. If they don't go for a quarterback, do they go for a wide receiver?
As much as and I know you were talking about the social media flack. I will be honest. I was half of those comments on your social media post, wondering why you didn't put Marvin Harrison Jr. Because as me and my dad were discussing today, funny enough, Marvin Harrison Jr. did not show up for his media portion of the media. He didn't show up for his availability.
And I'm sure you know why. After the conversation we had, I'm sure you know exactly why he didn't show
yeah.
up.
I'm talking about pretense, but I was saying that when he didn't show up for his media availability, me and another journalist, Brian Teague from Chicago State of Mind Sports, I'll give him a shout out. We were discussing the point of, for him, even though it was weird that he didn't show up to his media availability, it was he's definitely the first receiver off the board, and he's not doing anything but meeting with teams. And I was like, he's such a talent, and he's kind of almost like with how we were talking about Caleb Williams, like the number one who's coming in second. I firmly believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the first receiver off the board that is not the first player off the board that's not a quarterback. It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. So if we don't go quarterback, I surely hope for the generation of talent that Marvin Harrison Jr. is that we go Marvin Harrison Jr. If not, I do think there's all types of other people we can go with in the later rounds. I mean, we saw that last year with our best receiver last year for the Patriots was Demario Douglas, who was a 6th-round pick, a small school guy. So I think possibly, having Coker come back would be cool. Another person I'd say, I think is not getting enough love, but I feel like would be from Colorado. His name is Zay. I can't think of his last name at the moment. And he had the same kind of with Colorado, they had the same chip on their shoulder mentality. I think some of those smaller guys that aren't getting as much attention would be good. Also, another receiver that we could see the Patriots go with maybe in the 2nd round would be Brendan Rice from USC. I mean, that's Jerry Rice's son, so you got to think of the talent that comes with,
the legacy.
Yeah, and that would be a franchise name too.
Yeah, just also you got to think of the different tips he's definitely getting from undoubtedly the greatest receiver of all time. And then you got to
run around catching bricks.
Yeah,
and that's literally what he used to do because his dad was a mason.
Yeah,
Jerry Rice used to try and catch the bricks that his dad would throw.
Yeah, so you got to think stuff like that for that could be a good weapon that we could find, especially him being with Caleb Williams. That you got to assume one of the, as we were saying, maybe Caleb doesn't pan out. He's probably might be the reason, similar to the Devonta Smith with Mac Jones at Alabama. We could see that happen. So I think that could be somewhere to look at. Or also a Roma Dunze, as you were mentioning, Roman Wilson. There's a lot of guys and a lot of different options we definitely have at receiver. I hope the Patriots go sign a free agent to be a receiver number 1. But I think we can definitely draft one of these bigger guys to be a receiver number 2 in that system.
I think that they should draft Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's going to take the top off. And then you go and sign a free agent quarterback, say a Brissett. And then you draft late round somebody that can just sit on the bench, learn the game, get used to the speed, and then take over, 2 years from now. But the talent that Marvin Harrison Jr. has is primary receiver talent. And as you know, the Patriots don't really want to pay. So this is a perfect place for them to get that prime receiver at a lower price because he's going to be a rookie.
DJ, you mentioned Jalen Coker. How great would it be for the Patriots in the later round to come and grab up somebody like Jalen Coker, bring him back to Massachusetts, and have him playing at Gillette Stadium? How great would that be for him? How great would that be for the league? For the team, and how great would that be for a school like Holy Cross for bragging rights?
I mean, for Holy Cross, that's the big thing where you have your guy getting drafted. Especially being an FCS, a small school guy, you have very few of those. Because with Liberty, I know every time I would personally make some Demario Douglas updates or things, I find Liberty accounts posting. He's one of the few guys from their school. So now he's representing the whole school, putting the school on his back. Especially if also the city of Worcester now, that's a big thing, especially being someone from Worcester, seeing, athletes from places like us making out there, showing kids we can do it, as we always say, like a Jermaine Ortiz, and we have this sentiment a lot of the showing people that we can do it, especially like with North High basketball, the same sentiment. And then also like for him, I mean, he said at one point during his media availability that like people like, oh, why didn't you transfer and leave these FCS schools? And he's like, well, I was loyal to Holy Cross. I think he definitely is loyal to the state of Massachusetts, and I feel like he definitely would love to come back. I mean, for him, I'm assuming he's obviously going to have the mentality of I'll play anywhere they let me, and I'm just going to go where I fit in, which is obviously the right mentality to have.
That's the right answer.
But I feel like deep down, I feel like he's definitely got to love probably coming back to Massachusetts if that's possible, or going to play for like the Commanders at his home, near his home in Virginia, possibly. I think those are two teams he's definitely looking at for like, you know, the ties to where he's from, of course.
All right. Before we get on to the next pack, let's do a little trivia here. I love doing this with. So we'll go DJ against Darryl. Question number 1 for you guys, DJ. Whoever gets the question first, if they don't get the answer, the next person will be able to grab the question, and if they get the answer, they get the point too. All right. Who has thrown the most passing yards of all time?
Peyton Manning.
No, it's Tom Brady. Nice try though.
Ooh, DJ gets the point.
It used to be Peyton Manning though. That's because you're thinking.
I'm thinking back when he was on Denver.
Yeah, you're thinking like 2016 when he retired.
So Brady passed him because he played so long.
Yeah, it was Manning and Breeze passing, and Brady passed him after.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Who has thrown the most rushing yards of all time?
Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, you mean the most rushing yards in total?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Emmitt Smith. He holds that.
All right. So next question goes to Darryl. Who has thrown for the most receiving yards all time?
Jerry Rice.
Darryl gets 1. All right, next question. Who has kicked the longest field goal successfully of all time? DJ, this is a good question.
Justin Tucker. He did it versus Detroit off the doink off the bar. I remember watching that game. That was
the year.
Did it. That was the year they were Detroit went they lost their first 11 games. It was on Amon-Ra Brown's rookie season. Cause I remember that when he caught the winning touchdown. It was my senior year of high school. I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but I do.
Somebody kicked a long one too, but I think it was 1 yard shorter this year, wasn't it? Or no?
Yeah, I think Butker had 56.
Oh yeah,
but Tucker has the record. I know that.
So it's 3-1 DJ. All right, Darryl, questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which player has won the most NFL MVP awards?
I gotta say Peyton Manning again.
2-3. Darryl got that question. All right. DJ gets the next question. Who has the most sacks in the NFL of all time?
Bruce Smith. For the Bills.
4-2.
And he played for the Commanders, but he mainly was the Bill.
4-2, yep. He had 200 career sacks. All right, next question goes to Darryl. Who has the most interceptions in the NFL of all time?
Of all time? I am not sure. I'm going to go old school like Kraus.
Good assist there, DJ. So it's going to be 3-4. All right, let me see if I can toughen these questions up here. Questions for DJ. How many teams did the NFL have when it first started?
Oh, that's rough. I'm gonna go with the estimated guess here and say 12.
Darryl?
10.
Yes. 4-4.
It's crazy.
It's tied. All right. Next question goes to Darryl. When was the first NFL championship game broadcasted?
Okay, first game broadcast, I believe, was it Kansas City?
What year?
There were games before. I know Green Bay was in one, but those weren't broadcast. So I want to say it was the Chiefs.
What,
You know what?
You're gonna guess a year, so.
what year?
Let's go. Oh man, 71.
DJ.
I'm just gonna randomly guess 1965.
Oh my God. The correct.
That's right.
The correct.
Oh.
No, don't party yet.
Oh.
Darryl, you were right, but wrong.
Why is that?
You got the one, but it was 51.
Oh wow, 51.
They had TV back then?
So off by 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, yeah, I wasn't getting that. I was nowhere. I was thinking 60s and 70s. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'm picturing Joe Namath in a white fur coat.
All right. Next question goes to DJ. When did the NFL overtake the MLB as America's favorite sport? What year?
Oh my goodness. I'm just gonna say 1968.
Darryl?
It was sometime in the 70s, and it was because of Monday Night Football. So I'm gonna say like 77.
Correct answer would be the early 70s.
Oh, close.
So close. All right. Darryl, next question is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's 4-4. So whoever
I was
gets
thinking, is this for the win at this point? Like,
whoever gets the next question wins this, you know? All right. Darryl, which NFL team had the most wins in the 1970s?
Most wins?
Yeah.
Green Bay Packers.
DJ.
the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had 4 Super Bowls.
Oh yeah, the whole
Yeah,
the
whole
Terry
decade.
Bradshaw, yeah.
The correct answer is the Dallas Cowboys.
What?
They more than the Steelers?
Yeah.
Are we talking regular season wins?
They had the most wins in the 70s.
Oh, I'm thinking because the 4 Super Bowls, they must have probably had terrible records in the early 70s then.
No, that was Too Tall Jones and all those guys. They were actually pretty good.
That's
All
They
right.
just used to lose to Pittsburgh all the time.
in the Super Bowl.
Next answer goes to, that one went to DJ? That one, yeah, DJ, next question goes to you.
Yeah.
Which NFL team had the most wins in both the 1980s and the 1990s?
The 49ers.
Ding, 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 ding.
Now that's you said. If you just said just 80s and it left it open, when you said 80s and 90s, I'm like, it has to be the 90s because they won Super Bowls.
So
both
DJ
eras.
won that one there. All right, DJ, you had some results yesterday from the combine. You want to give those to us?
Oh yeah. So I mean, the story of the day to me was the kid out of Florida State, the defensive tackle. He had a 4.7 40. I mean, goodness gracious. I didn't know somebody that big could move that fast. I mean,
he was flying for a big guy.
I mean, the ongoing joke here with me and Darrow is I'm going to run the fan experience 40 tomorrow. We were saying we're trying to put the over-under on me running a 4.6, and he ran a 4.7. He has about 200 pounds and about 8 inches on me, and he's probably faster than me at my height. So that was crazy. And then we had another one that was just as wild, even though on paper it seems weird. One of the defense tackles out of Clemson, he weighs 366 pounds. And he ran a 5.27. Now, I know when you hear 5.27, you think, that's pretty slow.
Not for 300 and something pounds.
And that was what I was going to bring up is on Twitter, Robert Griffin III tweeted this, and he said, at his size, if he were to be a 180-pound defensive back, it was like if he ran a 4.26. That, to me, is pretty absurd. So that was one of those things, if you pay attention to, was very wild, for sure, was watching the results of them two guys move as quick as they did. And then we had some other guys have really good performances as well. Like a Dallas Turner from Alabama showed out very well. I mean, to the point where some people believe that he might up his stock to the top 10 possibly. And then I know for our New England listeners, we had one guy from New England schools go in yesterday, which would have been Eric Watts. And Watts had a pretty decent day. He popped in the top 10 for defense for the edge rushers a couple times. He ran a 4.67 40. He had a 36 and a half inch vertical and a 9 foot and a 9 inch broad jump. So he had a pretty good day for himself as well, who we also got to talk to the day before during media. But yeah, the big ones of the day was out of Florida State, Brandon Fisk, because that was the one that blew me away with him running a 4.78 at that size. I was like, wow.
He was moving.
I mean, yeah, the Dallas Turner up this stock did run a 4.46 as an edge rusher, but you know he's a little more lean than Brandon Fisk, you could say. Same thing with like a Chop Robinson from Penn State. He was somebody who blew people away with his 4.48 before Dallas Turner ran the 4.46, of course. And then another kid with the fastest combine of the day for the linebackers and edge rushers and defense tackles was Peyton Wilson from NC State with a 4.43. So got to, of course, give him a shout out for that. You know, but those guys, they definitely were doing their thing, and they were moving. So, I mean, credit to all of them. Of course, I mean, they showed out. Another person that, like, popped in the top 10 for the 40s, because I personally got to talk to him at one point, Jaden Crummy from Mississippi State had a 4.97 for the defense tackles. Once again, I mean, for those guys at that size running anything to sub-5, you got to give them credit.
Agreed.
Because secretly, we're hoping I don't run a sub-5, and I'm only a $120. So, you know, I got to give credit where it's due.
You're quick, DJ. You'll be fine.
Nate Wiggins, he ran a 4.28.
Yeah, that was today with the defensive backs. Oh, yeah. My word. I mean, that's...
But he suffered a hip flexor.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think the record, I'm pretty sure, is like a 4.22. So even though, like, he's not cracking a top 10 list all time, he's only about 0.7 seconds off of what is the combined record of sorts. Like, that is kind of wild when you think about
pretty
that.
Impressive.
That he's running a 4.26. Another person, too, there was someone else that ran a 4.33, and he impressed the Senior Bowl. I'm like, the name is spacing on me at the moment, but you'll see it in the pool reports when they come out tonight. But yeah, he's another one who had a very fast 40 and showed out, and it was just really crazy. And then, you know, a lot of those guys for the cornerbacks too, what was really impressive we were witnessing was some of the drills they were doing, because once again, we were sitting there talking while we were watching them, and there's one drill where they had to backpedal and like run back and kind of play like a center field to catch the long ball. And I was like, I give these guys credit for turning around that fast and still being able to trace that ball. I feel like turning that fast, I'd probably have tripped and face planted and had some turf in my mouth.
Yeah, the swivel hips on these guys, and they're able to backpedal, swivel left to right, and stay right on the line. It was pretty impressive, I got to say. And then some of them actually do have hands, even though they're defensive backs.
Mm-hmm. When you look at guys like Wiggins, though, Darryl, what are some of his weaknesses?
Well, I mean, one thing that, you know, I know they all went today, so they're compared with everything, but there is a lot of pressure on these guys. And I think sometimes that pressure, because you can see the nervousness, you can see the jitters, you can see, you know, some of them falling down or starting too quickly on the 40. And I think that those nerves really do him an injustice, because you're looking at, once you get used to it and once you get comfortable with the not comfortable with the game because they've been playing for a while, but comfortable with it at this level, I think that a lot of those nerves and the mistakes they're making literally disappear. But right now, they're prevalent.
And then you got to think, too, this is, as we say, the biggest job interview of their life, basically, between the one part where you're having guys, you know, to talk to teams, and like they're in these meetings and they're drawing on boards and showing what they know, and it's almost like taking a huge exam. Like, you might know it, but in that moment you get a little nervous and space out. Now you think you don't know something. Speaking to those nerves, you know, they're on those fields doing those drills, and now a lot of the world is watching. And in a sense, like, what these drills do, as I've learned, like, over like these past 2 years talking to different personnel guys and other people, is, in a sense, your drills and your workouts are supposed to confirm or deny what we see on tape. And in a way, nerves getting in the way of your workout could now make people think what they saw on tape is being denied in real life now when they see it for themselves, where in reality, what you're showing on tape is what you really are. So the nerves got to you on that one day, which is, you know, the biggest day of your life as you're running these things and possibly make or break your stock. I mean, we saw that with Anthony Richardson last year, where he ran that huge that amazing 40 and had that 40-inch vertical, and he went from, you know, a third-round projection to the fourth pick in the draft, just alone off the athleticism and the part of, you can't teach that. You can teach him how to throw a ball and make the right read. So it is like the nerves are definitely one of the things that impact all players for sure.
But then, see, you get some like I'm not sure of the name, but we passed by one kid, and you know his whole family was there. So there was like about 8 or 9 people, and they're all in tears because he didn't do as well as he had wished. when he did his drills. And I mean, it hurt my heart a little bit, because I mean, these guys, this is their dream. You know what I mean? This is literally what they've been shooting for since they started playing Pop Warner football.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for one day to count so heavily is kind of a lot of pressure on them.
And then also, you were speaking on how, like, you're saying, like, their dream. I mean, because we were talking to guys, and, like, a question I like to ask people is, like, who inspires you? And a lot of guys you found where they're, like, their mom and their dad. And, one of the kids I talked to today, Tavion Robinson from Kentucky, was pretty much like, my mom was a single mother, and she raised just me and my brother. And so a lot of them, it's like, this is my dream, of course. But then also it's the thought of, like, I'm doing this for my family who provided and did so much for me. I mean, the kid from Colorado, Zay, he was saying, like, oh, yeah, I was here, and my family moved me to Arizona, I believe, or I might be mixing up with another kid, but I remember one of the kids I talked to was saying, yeah, my family moved me to Arizona from where we were at, from Long Island, New York. Oh, it wasn't Zay, it was, I think, the kid from Louisville, if I'm not mistaken.
Louisville,
he was saying, like, yeah, and my whole family, they moved me to give me a better opportunity for football, so I'm like, I'm doing it for them in a sense, I'm trying to make it because they've done so much for me. So, like, speaking to those nerves and, like, the dream, it is, like, a huge day. I feel like that's one of those things that, like, secretly you can't see on each guy's face, but you got to think it's probably like something that's hindering each and every one of them for sure.
Let's go to we're going to backtrack here, go back to Jalen Coker real quick. Darryl, would you call him a monster with size and adjustments and with sticky hands?
I don't know if it's so much size, but I think his speed is probably his best asset. And, of course, his hands, because he can catch it. I mean, all through, his career in college, he was the go-to guy when it came to long passes. He can get open. He can lose that back. Now, of course, when you're translating it into the NFL, they're going to be faster backs.
Mm-hmm.
But he seems like he's an excellent route runner, and he has good hands. So he'll go up and get the ball.
I mean, also, too, he was in the punt return game. So, you got to think his hands are definitely something that's important. And how he's running and his vision, I feel like are the things that are, like, are unrepresented. But, like you're saying, because especially even though as much as you're saying, like, it doesn't matter if you're a small school guy, technically the people he's playing, there's going to be a bit of a bigger jump
mm-hmm.
compared to the FBS guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same reason why I was saying to you the other day, like, with Drake May, my one concern for him is, even though it's like he was still Power 5, I'm like, of the Power 5, it wasn't like he was out dueling with some of the other quarterbacks in like the Big Ten or the Pac-12, where, there's a couple of guys out of the Pac-12 this year. It's like, he was in the ACC kind of like by himself. And, when you have him losing to other quarterbacks and other teams who had like very subpar seasons and quarterbacks were not even in the combine, I find that a little concerning, of course. But at the main heart of it, it is like a thing for these guys where it's like the jump of talent for Coker, that might be a thing we might see. But I think for sure, like what he brings to the game, being a punt returner and being their go-to guy and like stuff like that, I think he does have a lot to bring to a table as a small school guy, and that's why he's here and like deserves to be in this room
mm-hmm.
of the combine.
And he's ranked I believe 31 in the receiver class. So, DJ, would you call him a below? Would you say he has below average quickness with his runs after the catch?
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, in a sense, we'll sort of really see tomorrow with the 40s. I guess we'll kind of see if how the speed really shows on like paper, and kind of like I said, like confirm or deny how the tape is. Even like we were talking about the jitters, but I think that would be one of those things that we might have to really see. But in a sense, I mean, you see him getting 1,000-yard receiver. He got 1,000 yards in the past season. Being a kicker punt returner, I'm assuming you're putting him back there because he has some sort of speed in his repertoire. I'm assuming, because I mean that's why you put a punt returner back there as a quick, speedy guy who can make good cuts. So I'm going to assume because of that, this speed's probably maybe compared to other guys, maybe like more, I'd say like on the lines of like an average instead of below. But it's more of this when they work out tomorrow, we'll really have to see how it looks.
I think one of the things about Coker too is, when we were talking to him, you can tell his willingness to fit in wherever he's needed. I mean, he said receiver, special teams, he really doesn't care. He's just trying to add and produce and help whatever team he can, whatever team picks him. So I think that attitude in and of itself is a benefit.
And he's considered an average backup or special teamer.
Yeah. I'd also would say, too, to that. I mean, that's also why I feel like him coming home to the Patriots might be a thing. Because even though, like, yeah, we switched coaches the Patriot way, it was kind of a thing where we had a lot of guys who could do multiple things and multiple people's jobs. And so him being able to do special teams and be a receiver might be something more enticing than your regular, Brendan Rice or some of those bigger guys like a Marvin Harrison Jr., who you're not putting him back there to catch no kick returns or nothing. I feel like that gives more like aspects to his game. But I find with Coker, which I found really nice in that I'll get put in where I fit in, it's kind of the essence of what Tom Brady said one time of an interview I remember watching a while back, where he was saying, like, I don't care if you're picked 1 or 199. When you get your chance, you make the most of it. I feel like for Coker being a smaller school guy, trying to do multiple things and finding a way to fit in anywhere, just getting your foot in the door to get that opportunity and prove why you belong. So that was one of those things that I think was a very good answer on his part and a very great mindset to have for sure.
All right. There'll be more from the NFL Scouting Combine on Saturday night on News Talk New England. But I'm going to give Darryl the last word here. Darryl, what did it mean to you today when you were at the Scouting Combine and you see DJ and you see Jalen Coker side by side having that conversation? 2 young men on the rise from Worcester.
Well, me personally, of course, because I'm DJ's father.
Yeah.
It's great. One of the things that I noticed is even just in the media, DJ is like ahead of his time. He's the youngest one in there doing it. And I was trying to explain to him, most sophomores in college aren't worried about trying to get to the combine. They're worried about where can we go out and party.
Yeah.
So him already doing the job and already ahead of the game was an excellent thing. Now, having him and Coker talking to each other, this is a huge venue now. You're talking big time. This is the NFL. And it's almost like you see 2 hometown heroes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With Worcester behind them, they're in the big leagues in a sense. So it did my heart good to see it. But then again, he's my son, so I'm biased.
Oh, I'm not biased. Well, I can be biased actually. I made a comment to somebody today, and I said, Louis Ojeda and Woodrow Adams Jr., they got to coach DJ in high school and junior high school, but now I feel like I get to coach DJ in the beginning of his career, and I feel honored to do that. So DJ, I think that your takeaway from all this, you should definitely take a bow, because your dad's right. You are 10 years ahead of yourself right now by doing the stuff that you're doing, and your career is off to an amazing start. When you feel like days are stormy and gloomy and the clouds and skies are gray and you want to give up or quit, I want you to look back at days like today when you're interviewing guys like Jalen Coker from your hometown, and remember why you started this journey.
Thank you, honestly. For me personally, it's just the trying to go out there and, especially as somebody working with the Boys and Girls Club, I always say it's just, I want to prove it to those kids and those younger me that I see, and just that, even though we might be from a small town, and I mean, not like Worcester super small, but from a small state in a city that, like, when I go to Howard, no one knows exists. I'm like, we can do it too. So,
yeah.
To hear these nice sentiments is always grateful, and just makes me, want to keep working and get somewhere where I can show kids from Worcester, like how Croker and Jermaine Ortiz do that, like, just because, you don't hear about us, maybe we're not Boston or whatever, or a huge city, we still can do that, and you belong in those rooms too.
Exactly. All right, for News Talk New England, this is Sports Zone. I'm Tiffany Williams alongside Darryl Harden Sr. and DJ Harden, who are both on location all week long at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana, at Lucas Oil Farm. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just be yourself.